The Lost Child by Mulk Raj Anand. It was the festival of spring. From the wintry shades of narrow lanes and alley emerged a gully-clad humanity. Some walked, some rode on horses, others sat, being carried in bamboo and bullock yards. One little boy ran between his father's legs, brimming over with life and laughter. "Come, child, come!" called his parents as he lagged behind, fascinated by the toys in the shops that lined the way. He hurried towards his parents, his feet obedient to their call, his eyes still lingering on the receding toys. As he came to where they had stopped to wait for him, he could not suppress the desire of his heart, even though he well knew the old, cold stare of refusal in their eyes. "I want that toy," he pleaded. His father looked at him red-eyed in his familiar trained way. His mother, melted by the free spirit of the day, was tender and giving him her finger to hold, said, "Look, child, what is before you?" It was a flowering mustard field, pale like a melting gold as it swept across miles and miles of even land. A group of dragonflies were bustling about on their gaudy purple wings, intercepting the flight of a lone black bee or butterfly in search of sweetness from the flowers. The child followed them in the air with gaze, till one of them would still its wing and rest, and he would try to catch it, but it would go fluttering, flapping up into the air. When he had almost lost, caught in its hand, then his mother gave a cautionary call. "Come, child, come! Come on the footpath!" He ran towards his parent gully and walked abreast of them for a while, being, however, soon left behind. Attracted by a little insect and worms along the footpath that were teeming out from their hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. "Come, child, come!" His parents called from the shade of a grove where they had seated themselves on the edge of the well. He ran towards them. A shower of young flowers fell upon the child as he entered the grove, and, forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hands. But lo! He heard the cooing of leaves and ran towards, dropped from his forgotten hands. "Come, child, come!" they called to the child, who had now gone running in wild capers around the banyan tree, and gathering him up, they took the narrow, winding path which led them to the fair through the mustard fields. As they neared the village, the child could see many other footpaths full of throngs converging to the whirlpool of fair, and at once repelled and fascinated by the confusion of the world he was entering. A sweetmeat seller hawked gulab jamun, rasgulla, barfi, jalebi at the corner of the entrance, and crowd pressed round his counter at the foot of an architecture of many-colored sweets, decorated with leaves of silver and gold. The child stared open-eyed, and his mouth watered for the barfi that was his favorite sweet. "I want that barfi," he slowly murmured. But he knew as he begged that his plea would not be heeded because his parents would say he was greedy. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. A flower seller hawked, "A garland of gulmohar, a garland of gulmohar." child seemed irresistible drawn. He went towards the basket where the flower lay heaped and half murmured, "I wanted garland," but he well knew his parents would refuse to buy him those flowers. They would say they were cheap. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green, and purple balloons flying from it. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow glory of their silken colors, and he was filled with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. But he knew, well, his parents would never buy him balloons because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. So he walked on further. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket, its head raised in a graceful bend like the neck of a swan, while the music stole into the invisible ears like the gentle rippling of an invisible waterfall. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music as the snake charmer played, he proceeded further. There was a roundabout in full swing. Man, woman, children, carried away in a string-moving motion, shrieked and cried with dizzying laughter. The child watched them intently, and then he made a bold request. "I want to go on roundabout, please, father, mother." There was no reply. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there, ahead of him. He turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. A full, deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in a real fear, "Mother! Father!" Tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. Panic-stricken, he ran to one side, then to other, hither and thither in all directions, knowing not where to go. "Mother! Father!" he wailed. His yellow turban came untied and his clothes became muddy. Having run to an end, froze in a rage of running for a while, he stood defeated, his cries suppressed into sobs, a little distance on the green grass as he could see, through his filmy eyes, men and women talking. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among these people, who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. He ran quickly again, this time to a shrine to which people seemed to be crowding. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through his people's legs, his little sober lingering, "Father, Mother," near the entrance to his temple. However, the crowd became very thick. Men jostled each other, heavy men with flashing murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. The poor child struggled to thrust a way between in their feet, but knocked to fro by their natural, brutal movements. He might have been trampled underfoot had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice, "Father! Mother!" A man in the surging crowd heard this cry, and stopping with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. "How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you?" The man asked. He steered clear of the mass. The child wept more bitterly than ever now, and only cried, "I want my mother! I want my father!" The man tried to soothe him by taking him to a roundabout. "Will you have ride on the horse?" he gently asked as he approached the rings. The child's throats tore into 1,000 shrills, sobs, and he only shouted, "I want my mother! I want my father!" The man hurried towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to a singing cobra. "Listen to that! Nice music, child!" he pleaded. But the child shut his tears with his fingering and shouted his double-pitched strain, "I want my mother! I want my father!" The man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloon would distract the child's attention and quieten him. "Would you like a rainbow-colored balloon?" he persuasively asked. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloon and just sobbed, "I want my mother! I want my father!" The man, still trying to make the child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller said, "Look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put around your neck?" The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated his sob, "I want my father! I want my mother!" Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of the sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. "What sweets you like a child?" he asked. The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, "I want my mother! I want my father!"